Now, Diane, let me welcome you to the programme. And UK Column been covering child abuse cases for many, many years. The issue of Fornethy residential school in Glasgow has been one we've been covering for quite some time. What's the latest?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Hello, Ben. It's great to be here today to talk about this. I have an update, and I've had several updates that I've kind of been saving up for the last several months just because it's been a very slow process, as it always is. But the most recent update that I want to share, and then I'll work back from there, is that there will be a hearing on their petition in the chamber at Scottish Parliament on the 12th of June. We do have a new page on the UK Column website that shows all of the coverage that we've been doing over time, basically starting going back to 2022 and continuing to this day in 2025. So there's been conferences, there's been interviews, there's been written articles, news segments by several of us on the team. But this is something that I've taken on myself and have been working on for a number of years. So the petition that is finally going to be heard after a very long time, again, 3 years in the making, is on the Scottish Parliament website, allow the Fornethy Survivors to access Scotland's redress scheme. And at the center of what's been happening and the problem is that they were saying that even though they're not denying that there was terrible abuse that happened at Fornethy Residential School, which is in a very remote area of Scotland. So they would take these girls from Glasgow and take them out into this old house in the middle of nowhere, and all kinds of things that we can't even really speak about happened to them. So the problem is that they're saying that they don't qualify for the redress scheme in Scotland under the Child Abuse Inquiry because they weren't abused for long enough. So they were only there for 6 weeks at a time, and that wasn't enough to be abused sexually, emotionally, physically, and otherwise to be able to access redress and justice. So that's what this petition is all about. As their appointed researcher on behalf of the Fornethy survivors, I submitted written evidence to the Parliament, to the Petitions Committee back in 2024. And this is what I was saying, is that basically there's 2 points that after hours and hours of going to archives in Glasgow and the National Records of Scotland and so on, is that basically the issue is that they're saying that they don't apply for the redress scheme because, first of all, the short amount of time, and also saying that it was some sort of a convalescent or a holiday home for these girls, which was not the case. The 2 main points is that, first of all, is governed by the Corporation of Glasgow or Strathclyde Regional Council at the time, and it was an official attendance at a residential school, and also the evidence that they were not under the care of their parents. They were taken away from the custody of their parents and put into the hands of the state when they were there, which meant that basically anything could happen and did happen to them. So my evidence has been central to getting it to this point, and I just have a clip here from a video that was from, I think, in early January. We first posted it with Lynn Sheeran and Brian Garish, where he's been interviewing several of these women. And Lynn has been my main contact now for this Fornethy case. And let's just play a short clip to hear what she had to say about what we have been able to do for them so far.
The information that the Scottish Government's independent got was nothing that we didn't already know. Diane did go and dig deeper for us, and she did find out a lot of things that was relevant for us. She had made up a piece that the committee actually read out. Diane, for us, I believe, was good. She did help us in a big way. She helped us to get in there to the committee, to get her point across to them. There was information that she found out, like Fornethy was run and by who. We knew that, but the deeper side, yeah, she more or less blew theirs out the water. The information that the independent got was all censored. Everything Diane got was there in black and white.
So one of the main things that this so-called independent researcher has done, and you can read my full article that's on the UK Column website that goes into more detail, that's showing the evidence of what was in the archives versus what the independent researcher said, and then therefore by default Scottish Government, because even though she was claimed to be independent, she was being paid by Shona Robinson, who was the Deputy First Minister and the Finance Minister at the time up in Scotland. So what happened was when Hamza Yousaf stepped down and there were new people put into place in the Scottish Parliament, we now have John Swinney and we now have Kate Forbes as First Minister and Deputy First Minister, respectively. The issue that's been happening, of course, is that they're continuing the same message. Back in August, Kate Forbes, who was then at that point Deputy First Minister, rejected a call from the MSPs, including the Petitions Committee, who are all in full support of the women, citing basically the independent report, which was not me, the actual independent researcher, but the one employed at the time by Scottish government, saying that they had attended Fornethy House, which is actually incorrect. It was Fornethy Residential School, which is a major point in the case, primarily on a short-term basis for convalescence or recuperative holiday under arrangements involving their parent or guardian and another person. That is completely false. They were taken there, placed by the Education Committee at the time, and they were not convalescing. They were just sent there. So in September of 2024, we had a sort of an apology that was not a proper formal apology, but it was thrown out by Glasgow City Council because ultimately the Glasgow City Council has direct responsibility for everything that happened to the women when they were at Fornethy. So it's not really the Scottish government. They're responsible for the redress scheme, but it's actually Glasgow City Council's jurisdiction because it was the councils before them. And so they kind of put out an apology, but it wasn't the formal apology that the women were expecting. Unfortunately, they have not been able to get any further than that. Colin Smith, who's the MSP, who's been, along with Alex Cole-Hamilton and a few others who have been leading this case, especially Colin and Alex, have been saying we need to push this forward. So they're not on the Petitions Committee, but they do have the unanimous support of the Petitions Committee. So what Colin did back in November was he wrote up basically some information after the Petitions Committee eventually agreed that they would take it to this debate, which is happening soon. And it's really interesting to see what he had to read, because it was my evidence that he cited that said this was under the scheme of residential education run by Glasgow Corporation and later by Strathclyde Regional Council. And so therefore they should be eligible. And the only reason that they're not being eligible is because of the lies that are being told that they were there for convalescence, and the lies that they were being told that they were chosen there that their parents chose them to put there, and that they were there for a holiday, when actually they were unenrolled from their school in Glasgow and re-enrolled in Fornethy, where there was no education even taking place, which was another problem, where they're supposed to be having lessons and they had none. They were just being forced to do things that the staff were telling them to do. Also, one more important thing to announce is that there will be, there is a court case against one of the alleged abusers that will be taking place hopefully in the autumn. I think it's been scheduled for September, so we'll see if that's happened because they keep pushing it back. This woman is Patricia Robertson. She's now 76 years old, and she is to stand trial accused of historical abuse at this former residential school, facing a total of 26 charges that happened between 1967 and 1983. That is from the BBC. So let's just hope that we will get the support that we need when we are in Parliament on the 12th of June, and that the court case will actually proceed as planned, Mike.
Dan, thank you very much for that. And no doubt we'll talk a little bit more about this in extra, because this is an ongoing case which goes right to the heart, as they often do, to government in Scotland, but governments in general. Okay.